Hello and welcome to the East Coast Fiberglass YouTube channel. Today we're going to show you a method for making a simple mould in either latex or silicone. For the latex mould, we start off by hot gluing our sculpt to a base, which can be almost any non-porous material such as melamine board, glossy MDF, plastic, etc. Then we seal the gaps at the base of the sculpt with plastoline or wax-based clay. Also form a wall with plastoline or clay around the sculpt to stop any latex running off the edge and to help build up some thickness at the bottom of your mould. Using professional grade latex, we then start to brush apply our latex all over the sculpt and on the base, making sure to get into all the details. Leave this to go touch dry, to a point where it looks yellowy with only a few whitish areas in the corners. Don't let it fully dry out, otherwise you may have bonding issues between layers. And then repeat this coating in the same way about 3 or 4 times. Once these layers have been applied, that should take care of all the fine detail. And then you can add latex thickening agent to the rest of the coats to speed up the layering. Add around 10% of latex thixotropic agent to the next batch of latex and mix until the latex turns to a thick mayonnaise-like consistency. Then start to apply this to the initial layers of latex. Let each layer dry, but not fully, before adding the next layer. Again, add around 3 to 4 coats, or until you have around a 4mm thickness to your latex. You can check this by peeling the base back slightly. Leave a few days to fully dry at room temperature, approximately 15 to 18 degrees Celsius, and then you can peel off your mould. Large moulds may need a plaster or a fiberglass jacket for support, but for small moulds like this, you can simply support them in a bucket of lightweight kiln-dried sand or other fine lightweight powder. For casting from latex moulds, use resins that do not contain solvents or have a high bond such as polyesters or epoxies. You can cast from latex using jesmonite or plaster or other non-aggressive casting materials. You shouldn't have too much trouble removing simple shapes from latex like this little fellow on the left. Latex can have its limitations, however, as shown on our other guy with the pom-pom. If you have an undercut in your sculpture, the latex may not have enough stretch to be able to be peeled off your sculpture's shape. small pom-pom detail, however, could be moulded and glued to our cast later. Or better still, we could make a simple split silicone mould as shown here and in the second half of this video. A silicone mould for our sculpt, we repeat the first step as we did for the latex mould and glue our sculpt to a base, sealing around the bottom again with plastiline. Then using cardboard and a hot glue gun, we build a wall approximately 1 inch away from the sculpt and 1 inch higher than the sculpt. We can also cut the cardboard and wrap it in strong tape to make the wall conform closer to the contours of our sculpt. This will reduce the cavity space between the cardboard and the sculpt and help save on the amount of silicone needed for our mould. You can also just use a cardboard tube if your mould's not too large. There are many ways to create this walled container, such as using clay, Lego, etc., but this way suits us just fine. The silicone we're using is available in 2 speeds, the red RTC slow cure and the blue VF fast cure. If you're new to this, we would advise using the red RTC curing agent and leaving your mould to cure overnight. For this demonstration, and because we're familiar with the product and process, we're going to use the VF so we can possibly remove the mould later the same day. Weigh out your required base silicone and add 10% by weight of curing agent to the base and mix the two together. Ensure to mix thoroughly, making sure that you end up with a uniform colour with no evidence of white streaks. It's a good idea to mix in a clear container to ensure this. When it's ready, it's a good idea to pop the mixture into a degassing chamber. This uses a vacuum to remove any excess air from the silicone, which will reduce bubbles in your silicone mould. Pour the silicone into your created cavity. Again, if you have a degassing chamber, it's a good idea to pour just to the top of your cast, degas the silicone again to draw out any air from undercut details around your sculpt, and then top off with the remaining silicone. Degassing is very important, especially if your sculpt has a great deal of detail, so it is worth investing and researching this process. For very simple shapes, degassing is not always necessary. Once your mould is cured, remove the cardboard and base and, wherever your split line needs to be, carefully cut into the mould with a slight zigzag pattern. As you cut further into the silicone, you can straighten your cut slightly. This cutting technique will help the two halves of the silicone lock back together and prevent a step showing in your final mould and final cast. When you're ready to cast, carefully fit the silicone back together and secure it with elastic bands. And check the join line is perfectly put together with no gaps. Then you can pour your casting medium, such as polyurethane, polyester or epoxy casting resin. Resins also can be degassed to ensure no air gets trapped in between your mould and the casting resin. Once removed from the mould, there should be very little amount of cured resin flashing to remove from the seam line. Thanks for watching. We hope you found this information useful. As always, all materials and tools shown can be purchased from our website at ecfiberglasssupplies.co.uk or just search for East Coast Fiberglass.